Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Reset Podcast. I'm your host, Laura Mignot, and each episode I bring on a different business leader who's doing some game changing work. And this episode is no different. I am so delighted to have Jenn Tardy, who's a career coach and diversity recruiting trainer. And we're going to have a great chat about her career journey and what she's up to today. Take a listen. Hey, Jenn.
Hey, how are you, Laura?
Oh, just causing trouble on a daily basis. It's kind of my thing.
I love it.
Uh, So the way the podcast works is the first question is always the same, and the answers are always hilarious. And I highly doubt yours would be any different. So Jenn, what was your first
My very first job was working as a cashier at Long John Silver's. So I was working at a fast food restaurant. And you know what's interesting? Let's see. I As soon as I turned 16, I got that job. I think within the first week. So I was trying to catch up to all of my other friends who are already 16 and working.
right? Of course, me too. Okay, so what did you learn along John Silver's? Were you, out of being a cashier at 16 years old, how much responsibility did they give you?
One of the things that I'll always take with me is that at Long John Silver's, our manager, she huddled us all together and she said, I want all of you to remember that people pay good money for this food. And because when you think about fast food, you're like, oh, okay, people are paying a little bit of money here, a little bit of money there. But to the people who are paying it, they're working hard to be able to have additional money so that they don't have to cook at their homes to purchase this food. And so what she was trying to tell us is that we need to take care in the experience that we're creating for them and the quality that we provide them because they're paying good money for this food. And I'm like, if I can think about it from that factor, then in my first job, I've actually taken that with me through all of my other jobs. So experience and quality to me is everything.
That's such an important lesson, and what a great boss first off to learn that from because it's something that folks never learn. They never
Right.
learn. So, okay, so you started Long John Silver, and how do we get to have this conversation today? What was that career journey like?
Oh, well, you know, I tell people, okay, and I don't remember all the jobs, but from the time that I was 16 until I got my first full-time job, you know how people say like your real job out of college? I probably worked around 13 or 14 jobs. And so like I worked at places like Barnes and Noble to working in a computer lab to tutoring to I worked at IHOP, so like jobs like that, right? So I knew how to work. And then by the time I graduated from Virginia Tech, I took a job in sales. And so I was working in a showroom. It was a high-end showroom with some of the top sales people across the country. And I was like almost their back end coordinator. And then I went from there to working in the training department where I really learned how to develop training programs, facilitate them, create an experience that was great for people. And all of that happened. It was almost like chapter one, right? But I spent,
In the beginning,
yes, yes, right. In the beginning, there was a lot of randomness, right? And then my true career path started when I got into recruiting. And I started off as a recruiter and I moved my way all the way up to leading recruiting leaders before I left corporate America completely in 2018 and started doing this work here. And, you know, I tell people often I am forever a recruiter at heart. I really found my space and I've also been able to recruit across many different industries from the railroad industry to the energy to healthcare recruiting to
wow,
education
railroad.
recruiting.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, to railroad to energy. Like I worked in so many different industries, and I actually believe that that's what led me to how I view the work that I do today when I started noticing that there was this hiring obstacle course where people who were talented, truly talented people from historically underrepresented groups, like they were competitive, they just weren't getting jobs because they were facing this obstacle course. And having been able to see that from industry to industry, I knew that it wasn't isolated. And so I wanted to make a bigger impact. And so, we started Jennifer Tardy Consulting back in 2017. I left my job in 2018 to go all in, my leap of faith. And now we're here.
That's such. Oh my gosh. I know. I think 6 years into doing this podcast, and I just, I'm always so delighted when I just get to hear folks sharing their stories because I think it's so, like, your story is just so rich with like how that first job really
Yeah.
sets the kind of north star for what you believe in and how you treat people. And that has carried you all the way through in terms of like all the different jobs you've had in your career. Because recruiting is that sort of same thing about like, people are putting their futures in your hands to figure out a new path for them on both sides, the company and the potential employee. And that is just that level of empathy and care is just a wonderful through line from your story.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I share with people like the reason why I'm so passionate about this work is because I've sat in so many different chairs. I've sat on the side of the table where I know what it feels like to be ambitious, but always be considered different, right? That I'm different from those who are making decisions and all this other stuff, that I identify differently. I know what it feels like to be a recruiter, recruiting individuals and interviewing individuals. And I also know what it feels like to be managing recruiters who are trying to find their way in recruiting people. I know what it feels like to be a hiring manager making the final selection decision. And now I know what it feels like to be a career coach helping people to navigate this process as well. And so my it's so interesting that you say empathy because I hadn't really thought about it that way. But truthfully, my empathy comes from having served in so many different roles in my own journey that now it's sort of like what's that movie where oh I can't even remember it, but anyway, I feel like all of the events of my past have sort of brought me to Slumdog Millionaire, have brought me to this space where it's like, oh, I know the answer to that, but it's because I happen to be a cashier at 16 at Long John Silver's, or I happen to be, the director of recruiting working inside of a research organization working with leaders. So I happen to know the answer to that too. It all kind of comes together sort of effortlessly. It's pretty cool to watch life happen.
Yeah, life happens, and I think we often forget that the things we. That's why honestly I asked the first question because 99% of the time, actually 100% of the time, whatever job folks mention as their first job, in some way, invariably affects the position they're in at the moment that we're chatting. Whether it's like, oh my gosh, like I would never want to work that hard ever in my life again, or it taught me the power of hard work, or
Yeah,
understanding that you have to people understand people's values and like and how hard they work and in many different ways. And that is what you do at that moment today. And and I think it's just really important, especially for younger folks who are listening, to understand that these races aren't for the swift, but like everything that you do and every experience that you have helps build this really nice cornucopia of who you are.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I tell people like when I am talking in front of audiences of people who are graduating from college or even are in high school and they're trying to find the exact person that they want to be when they grow up. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like I didn't know anything about recruiting. So you have to, what I always share with people is be open to the journey because it's through the journey that you start feeling called in specific areas, right? So it's not even for me. Yes, recruiting has been an amazing vehicle to getting me to where I am today, but the impact that I'm making to help people to feel more confident in the value that they have to bring to the table, like that's my calling. I just happen to do it through the lens of career coaching or through the vehicle of, training recruiters.
And that's just so important and awesome. So about career coaching.
Yeah.
So obviously the last few years has been traumatic for everybody. Everyone
Mhm.
has been affected. Everyone is different today in 2022 than they were January 1st, 2020. What are some good like tips and advice that you'd like to give that you kind of give to folks who are sort of starting off in this journey? We're like, I'm not sure I want to do the same job I've had for the last 10, 20 years. I've never had a quote unquote calling and I feel stuck, but I also want to move.
Yeah. So I would say two things. One is one of the things I try to do early on. We have a program called Inner Circle where we do group career coaching. And one of the first things that we try to do is help a person to see and acknowledge their own value. One of the reasons why we as in job seekers tend to get so nervous and so anxious about interviewing is because we somehow have been taught to view it as you know, you're in a hot seat and that the person on the other side of the table has everything that you desire, and it's and you have to prove yourself to them so that they can hire you into this position. But what I try to do is help a person to understand their own value, because if you really truly understand the value that you can bring to a person and you can speak with that language, that I understand the challenge that you're facing as an employer, as a manager, here's the value that I can bring to help to solve that problem, and you see yourself through a value-based lens, then you begin attracting people because you know your value. People are attracted to that value, and then you decide from there. So the first part is knowing your value. The second part is knowing what you desire. And I don't want a person to think that I'm saying know what you ultimately desire in life, the ultimate pinnacle of your life, know what that desire is. No, for some people, I want you to know what you desire in the season that you're in right now in life. What do you desire today, or what do you desire next? What is that very next desirable step? Because many of us are feeling stagnant or feeling, sort of lost in our own lives because we either have no clue what we desire, or we don't believe that we are enough to have that desire, so we never allow ourselves to say it out loud. So the very next thing that we do within inner circles, we really try to help people to be authentic to their own desire and to say it out loud, and then we create a path to help them get there.
That's awesome. And I think, and so necessary right at this moment. You know, I think for a lot of folks, when they're thinking about do I even hire a career coach or when do you think that you can add the most value for folks? Like, is there a light switch that has to go on for folks before they come to you? Like, how do you know when it's the right time to talk to someone like you?
I wish I had even known about career coaches when I was in college. And I'm always inspired by students who are even in high school that are exposed to career coaches. So I would say as early on as possible, there are two ways to answer this, right? So on one way, as early on as possible, when you are thinking about all, like, what are the things that I can do to set myself up for being the most competitive candidate in the future. And if you want to start in high school, fine. If you want to start in college, fine. If you want to start after college, that's fine too. But the moment that you begin thinking, I want a career path, and how do I set myself up best for that career path, then that's when you should begin thinking about having a career coach in your back pocket. And then there are some people who are like, I'm already on the right path. I just need somebody that I can use as a thought partner to help unpack or navigate what I'm experiencing today that feels like an obstacle or a hurdle to getting to where I want to get to next. And so having a career coach from that standpoint can be very helpful too. As a matter of fact, most of my clients, we're not spending a lot of time talking about the tactical things like, do X, Y, and Z in order to have the best answer for interview questions. We actually spend more time talking about, hey Jen, today I just had this interaction with my manager, it didn't feel so good. I feel like I need to tell them about it. Can you help me to figure out how to articulate what I'm feeling? Right. And so what we do is I help you to understand the feelings that you're having so that you can better articulate it to your manager for a positive and beneficial outcome. So yeah, I would say those two ways. That's when you'll know you need a career coach.
That's super duper helpful. So I think you also have to be in that moment of like, yep, let's do this, like, and make it happen.
Exactly.
So you also work in diversity recruiting. And so again, like obviously in the last 2 years, suddenly everyone woke up and decided diversity was important.
Right.
Um, just suddenly out of nowhere, just poof.
Right.
So what's that, sector of your business been like and who's calling you for that?
Yeah. So that probably 80% of what keeps us busy is the work that we're doing with employers. And we work with them in two different ways where we're either offering training to help their recruiters understand how to, inclusive recruiting strategies or how to help their hiring managers, or we work with them by way of consulting to identify where bias is hidden in their own hiring processes so that they can do something about it. And so, we have startups that reach out to us that are like, hey, we're just getting started and we want to make sure that we're building inclusive recruiting strategies as we're moving forward, all the way up to Fortune 100 organizations that are like, hey, we're already pretty sophisticated, but we still think that we could use a more immersive training strategies to help our recruiters take it to the next level too. So yeah, we work with, big and small organizations as well too.
So I'm sure the road to where you are today has not been very simple and defined, and never had a misstep in your entire career. I'd love for you to share like a time where you had a challenge and you're like, "There's no way I'm getting out of this," and then you did.
Very interesting that there's a time as an entrepreneur or just in my career
Anyone
journey
you
in
want,
general.
anyone you want.
Yeah. So I would probably say that the most memorable time for me was right when I was making the decision to take a leap of faith, just go all in on my own business. And I like telling this story because, here I am prime in my career. I've been told that leading recruiting departments, that my position is always going to be in demand. And, I knew it. Like I knew that I knew a lot of great stuff and I could go to any organization, but I really started feeling called to do more, to make a bigger impact. And right before and I started doing some of the work kind of like a side hustle, like let me do some career coaching here and there. But I knew that there was no way that I could continue working a full-time job and make the type of impact or the type of splash that I wanted to make because my time was being spent, dedicated to the office and my employees and things. And I would just spend every day, I would pace back and forth like, how do I make this decision? And even put it in perspective to I had two little kids at the time. I mean, obviously my kids are like 5 and 6 right now, but at the time, they're like 1 and 2 years old. And so how on earth, I had a mortgage, children, all of that. And I was
You're
like,
a
it
full
was
on adult.
adulting all day, all up and through the day. So um, that was one of the hardest decisions that I had to make, and it's this idea of, do I have enough faith in myself and my abilities to really make this work? And so you would think that, I would be like, yes, I have enough faith in myself. Let me go on out. And which I did. I wound up leaving my organization in March of 2018. But I thought that it was enough to just want to make an impact and that my business would just be absolutely successful in six
Just
months and
out
everything
there.
would be great, right? Right? I mean,
Of
isn't that
course.
kind of but 2019 was a really difficult year for me because it really challenged me to think in terms of building a revenue generating model. And it may mean that I have to broaden who my customers are. It may mean that I have to drop a lot of the fun projects that I was doing because I love writing, but I need to be strategic about how I'm writing. I need to be thoughtful about what I'm writing about and who I'm writing for. One of the actually one of the hardest things that I've had to do as a business owner is be very intentional about what events I say I'm going to do. Because a lot of people will come to me and say, hey, can you come and speak at this event? We don't really have a budget. We need you to speak for free. And I was spending a lot of time doing things, which is not revenue generating. And so
In
learning
there,
how
done
to
that.
say, right, learning how to say yes and learning how to say no was a big part of my learning curve. And so to answer that question, the hardest space for me was not only in deciding to leave or to stay, but also deciding how to become revenue generating as well.
And it's one of the hardest things to do as an entrepreneur because, you want to get your name out there, you want to do all the things. And
Yes,
also when folks come to you, they know you want to help them. But like, I always say that it's like, you have to at some point realize if it's serving you or you're serving them. And if it's
yes,
serving you, is it going to help elevate you to the next level where you can serve them? Or you just give, and you're not going to get anything back. So yeah,
1000%. Hey, I
I
love
have
that.
been,
Is it serving you or are you serving them? Right? That's a great
yeah.
question.
And it makes you, and it really does because like you just it puts a stake in the ground for you. And I look, I'm 10 years into I was 10 years into being an entrepreneur, and then I got an offer I couldn't refuse because it was
Yeah,
serving me versus serving them, and now I have this like big global job at a huge advertising agency.
I love
So
it.
you never know, and thank you. Um, so, one of the things that I think has been so impactful over the past, again, 2 years, especially is the importance of self care. And funny thing is, I was asking this question way before the pandemic happened. And it's been fascinating to see how the evolution of answers I've gotten in the last 2 years as well. And I'm anxious to hear yours. So, Jen, what do you do for your self care?
So, one of the first things that I had to do in order to get to a space of self care was creating boundaries in my business. And because I'm the type of person where, when it comes to the people who are reporting to me, I want to give them all the time that they need, new clients all the time that they need. I had to rearrange my schedule to indicate boundaries. And so, for example, I don't have any meetings, internal or external, on Mondays and Fridays so that I can execute. So my meetings are typically Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, which keeps me really busy. And also, I had to give myself permission to end my day at 3 p.m. Now, my days start at 4 a.m., right? But I had to also give myself permission to end it at 3 p.m. And now, with having that space in my calendar, I'm able to say, okay, well, if I want to go for a walk in the park, then this is my time to actually go for a walk in the park. Something as simple as incorporating at least 45 minutes on my calendar for lunch, 5 days a week where
Nice.
nothing can block that time is like time where I can, disconnect. I also give myself permission to not do any work on Sundays. But did you notice how often I'm saying I give myself permission?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so it's a really big deal because especially when you're ambitious and you're a super hard worker, which I'm sure this resonates with you as well, it's hard for us to think that it's okay to slow down and to pamper ourselves. And so I know that for me, I have to actually tell myself it is okay for you to have an hour lunch until I get accustomed to seeing an hour available on my calendar each day. So those are some of the ways that I practice a little bit of self care. I need to get better though, but this is a
Listen,
good
it's
start.
a process. It's a process, and
Yeah.
I love that about giving ourselves permission. But I think again, similar. You're hard charged. You're trying to do all different stuff, and you're like,
Yep.
no, I need to like eat my lunch at my desk in 12 seconds versus
Right.
let me just take some time, like for
Right.
real. I mean, And I was guilty of this. I'm still guilty of this. Like, I was at my desk from like 8 till 3 last week, and I like ordered lunch in because like I couldn't take a minute to like stop and go get some lunch or make something for lunch. And it's hard. So
Yes.
I love the idea of giving myself permission. So I think that's a fantastic way of framing it. Now, my
And
last question for you.
well,
Oh, go ahead.
I just want you just made me think about something else too that I don't know. I feel moved to share this. But I think it's really important because my children, my two boys being 5 and 6, they don't really understand boundaries or they're learning boundaries now and they don't know that mommy works starting at 4 a.m. and then she takes a break to get us ready for school and take us to school. Then she comes back and then she works all day and then she picks us up. They don't understand that mommy is tired, and so there are some times where they're getting used to hearing mommy say, "Hey boys, mommy needs a little bit of privacy. Mommy needs a little bit of quiet time. So can the two of you go and play or go and do da 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 da, which is move out of mommy's room right now." And so that those boundaries even extend to my children, where they're starting to get it. Mommy needs a little bit of privacy. So get out.
Exactly. Love it, love it. But yeah, but also it starts. I think it's so important to start that so as young as possible because when they see that, that reflect that, and so as they get older, they'll understand the importance of setting their own boundaries about things that they will and will not and will are non-negotiable. So I think it's a brilliant way of instilling that as an early on from early
Yeah.
on. And now my last question for you: do you have a give and or an ask of the audience?
Um, yes, I both. So
Go
let
for it.
me let me put the ask out there first. I really believe that there is a thing called the hiring obstacle course that is real for people, and that people can use support in navigating their own careers. And so if someone in your audience, anyone that's listening, knows someone who's struggling to navigate their own career, tell them about a career coach, whether it's me or another career coach, right? Tell them about a career coach so that they can have the support that they needed. Because I wish that someone would have told me about a career coach early on in my career. So many differences could have happened. And then here's my give. We work on a lot of free resources. And so if you're ever looking for free resources, specifically through the lens of being, from a historically underrepresented group and trying to navigate your own career search, all you need to do is go to jennifertardy.com/resources for job seekers, and we have a lot of free resources there for you. Be sure to take one and use it. And I get feedback all the time on people who are like, I got the job," and that to me is the best impact
Best.
that I can make. Yeah.
It's fantastic and so necessary and such fantastic bits of advice. Uh, then I knew you'd be wonderful, and I love I'm always right about this. Thank you so very much. I mean, just chock full of wisdom. We're going to put your details in the show notes for folks to reach out and connect with you and take these fantastic words of wisdom to heart. Like I said, it's always a delight. But like I said, I love doing this because you were just packing so much good wisdom in such a short amount of time. So thank you so much for being part of the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Laura. I appreciate you.
Awesome. And that is our show.
Aw.